Kicks 105.5 WKXH. Good morning, I'm JJ. It is Wednesday, January 25th at 7:48 and 19 degrees outside.
We're late today.
Are we? Yes.
Usually it's 7:47, isn't it?
We're a minute late.
Yeah, that's all right.
Well, we had to let the song finish playing.
That's true. Drinking songs have to play out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like our listeners dislike more than a song ending when you're
Midway.
listening to it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Midway.
Kind of a
Well, we are talking
peeve.
with Mike Barrett from the Barrett Insurance Agency this morning. And Mike, what are we talking about this morning?
Well, for good policies this morning, we're going to talk about water. The joys of water. There's so many ways that water can damage your property. And so I thought, you know what, not a bad idea to talk about it because this time of year, you know, the higher probability of fire losses certainly occurring. I think there's a structure fire in upstate New York right now. There was a structure fire overnight in the western side of Vermont. So certainly something that can happen more frequently this time of year as we're using alternative sources of heat, wood heat, pellet heat, things like that. But water's also pretty big this time of year. You know, water losses, this is where I promise I don't make up the rules of insurance, thankfully, because if I was, I would say, go ahead and slap me silly. That's fine. But water can be and cannot be covered. It depends. Isn't that a wonderful answer for loss to your house?
And that depends on what?
It depends on what. How did the water occur, right? And, of course, this time of year, multiple things can happen. You could run out of fuel and a house goes cold. You could run out of power and the house heating system can't operate. You could have cold pockets that you were not aware of in your home. That even though you're fully up and running and have heat and everything, it might be a cold pocket where some plumbing is that can lead to some problems with frozen plumbing. And here's how that's covered. Frozen plumbing, if it bursts, the water damage, with a few exceptions. Again, we're talking in general terms, probably referring to some of the more common policies for homeowners and business owners at this point, but it would be covered. The damage caused by the water would be covered. So let's say that water totally saturated a living area with flooring. Well, guess what? That flooring is going to need to be replaced, and that will be covered. But the first and foremost step with any water loss at all is the mitigation of future loss. And what is that? Well, getting out the organic material that got soaked is very key, but drying out is just as important because one of the immediate things that happens after water loss is the development and growth of mold. And mold can be a very expensive thing to mitigate. So staying ahead of it is very important, not letting a couple of days go by. So if you have a water loss, file the claim and maybe call a water mitigation company for dry out. Get some of them gigantic commercial dehumidifiers and fans and have it start getting that moisture out of the air. Mold is covered if it's caused by a covered loss in your policy, but most companies max out at $10,000 in mold mitigation. And I've seen claims in excess of 50. So you want to make sure you're ahead of it. Other types of water loss, certainly you could have water loss from just burst plumbing in general, leaky plumbing. Now, there are many policies that if you have a water loss that's caused by a slow, kind of unrecognized drip somewhere, sometimes there's some companies that say, look, we cover water loss, but we don't cover it over a long period of time. So it's important for you to be aware of that. It's about knowing your property and knowing your home. Remember, backup of sewers and drains, which a lot of time will include water because those types of endorsements on a homeowner policy will cover you if even the seepage of water coming into the basement is not being mitigated by your sump pump because maybe the sump pump failed or the drainage of the house failed. That could be covered, but otherwise, that's not going to be a covered loss. You want to remember floods not covered on the homeowner. You have to have a separate policy. So water is and is not covered. It depends, which is just the worst thing to think about. But that's kind of the scare that we have for ourselves.
So talking about water. Snow on a roof.
I love it. You're going to the next one I was going to talk about.
We had that happen here last year where the snow just built up and it started melting and then we got flooded.
Yeah. So that's the ice damming, right? So you're going to have that fluctuation of temperature on a pitched roof or even possibly on a flat roof, although those usually have drainage mechanisms in place, but certainly a pitched roof where you could have snow and then the mixture of different temperatures and different precipitation can cause ice damming. And now when the water is trying to come from the higher peak of the roof and come down to where it's supposed to go, there's a beautiful little ice dam there. So now you have this pond of water that is kind of more or less just sitting on your roof. If there is an escape point, it is going to take it. So if you have any weakness whatsoever, you're going to get that water that'll come into the house. And, there are some policies that may not cover that, but most will. Certainly the damage of that would be covered. Now, where it came in and the penetration point, that would not be covered probably, unless it was due to damage to the roof that had been caused by something you were unaware of. But certainly if you get that water coming in from dams on your roof, and I had that at my house, it is covered for the damage. Subject to deductible in every case, but certainly would be having some coverage.
So is there anything there, because we got a lot more snow coming according to the forecast, and you get a foot, 2 foot of snow built up on your roof,
Yeah.
and your roof caves in.
Right. That's weight of snow and ice, and that'll be covered in most cases. I hate saying most cases, but because there's many different policy types out there, everything from a dwelling fire policy Form 1 to a homeowner policy Form 1, there's some that may not have that coverage, but the lion's share of folks listening have it. If you have a farm policy with barn buildings, not every barn has weight of ice and snow coverage, depending on the company. Some companies you can have it, but you have to specifically be approved for it, just because barn structures are pretty susceptible to that type of loss. But yeah, if you had weight of ice and snow that caused a collapse, you would have coverage in most cases. God, I hate saying that. But I got to be careful. I can't say all cases, because then if it happens and somebody goes, well, Mike said it happens, it's covered for everybody. Well, I got to just want to be careful of that, pump the brakes. But
So that leads me to another question.
sure.
Does it negate your policy at all if you were lax on cleaning off the snow?
No. There's no provision in a policy that says when there's X amount of inches of snow in your house, it is incumbent upon you of cleaning the roof. No, there was not that provision. So and honestly, that's going to be a failure to clear off the roof in most cases if it built up like that. And even the ice damming, that was my fault, right? So where I had the ice damming, if I had just taken a roof rake and gone up maybe 6 feet on my roof and just dragged some of the snow down where the pitch was, or where the pitch kind of shifted a little bit, I think I would have been better off and wouldn't have had an issue. But no, there was not. They're not going to come and say that's your fault, because that's why insurance is there. As much as I'm saying for the most part, and possibly and maybe, I mean, it sounds so ambiguous, and I hate that. But in the lion's share of what we're talking about, yeah, you're going to have coverage appropriately. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
Because that led me to another question, but we're
running out of
already
time. Yeah,
running
we
out
talked
of
too
time. Well, I'll have some more questions for you next week.
much. The good news is I'll be here. So. Real
right.
quick, I want to do a plug for NEK Can, Northeast Kingdom Cancer Action Network, Winter Snowball coming up February 4th at the Moose Lodge. $20 per person. All proceeds go to NEK Can, where we're funding grants for people that are under a cancer diagnosis and currently seeking treatment. We have at least 5 people now that are getting grant money every month. We have at least 6 more that we'll be reviewing tomorrow night. And we do this with the proceeds we raise from these events. So a great night of music and dancing. Formal, yes. Non-formal, sure. It's not none of the above. You can come how you want. We've had a lot of people ask us, should we be dressing up? You don't have to. There is no stipulation on that. So if you want to come comfortable, come comfortable. I plan on it. So
I actually have your flyer here.
look at that.
We're going to push it another minute here. And let's see, food will be provided by the Moose Lodge.
Yes.
Now, is that covered under the $20?
That's it. That's all there.
It is. And the cash bar is
That's them. Yeah.
That's the bar.
That's the bar. That's the bar.
That's different. That's not free.
No. But remember, we're saying fun. Well, there you go. That's part of the fun. So, but yeah, it should be. We had a great time with our 80s dance in the fall, and we're really looking forward to doing this so that we can continue our efforts to support those actively fighting cancer. So, it's a
Well,
great thing.
thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in, Mike, and sharing it with us.
Absolutely.
If someone has any insurance questions or any services that you may be able to provide,
Yeah.
how can they reach out?
Easy. 748-5224 is our number. We're on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. Online, thebarrettagency.com. Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency.
Thank you so much, Mike, and we'll talk with you again next week.
All right. Go play in the snow.
Kicks 105.5, that was Mike Barrett from the Barrett Insurance Agency right here on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury, and we will talk with him again next week.